Howdy folks, and welcome back to part 2 of the Defence Capability Centre Shrivenham visit video. I hope you enjoyed the first part. You ready for some good stuff in part 2? Let's show you some good stuff. Right, this is going to be the highlight of my trip. It's a Mark 7 or possibly, I'm not entirely sure, Mark 9 Century. I've been waiting to get my hands on one of these since, well, forever. Since I was 12 years old, driving past the Vickers Armstrong factory where they built these things in Newcastle on the number 21 bus on the way into town. Oh, I've been waiting a long time for this. Right then. Okay, let's see if we can get a look. There's the driver's compartment. They're not very spacious, but there's at least there's a bit more space there than inside the T72. Just going to climb over the old gun. And get on top of the turret. Oops, just smacked my head off the ceiling tiles. Let's see what the view's like from the commander's position. Oh, nearly lost the torch. Right, this seat actually appears to be spring-loaded. Hello, Eddie. So this is the view from the commander's position of the good old Chieftain. Let's get inside. Right, well there's the breech of the 105mm gun. Gunner would sit there. Actually, that's the loader. The gunner would sit there. Of course he would. Where's the gun sight? Ah, there it is. Smoke, armour piercing, discarding sabot, Hesh, good old Hesh, machine gun or Mills, whatever that is. I'm sure somebody will be able to explain in the comments. I have no idea what any of this stuff does. I suspect this may rotate the turret, so I'm not going to touch it. But look at the space in here compared to, you know, the Russian stuff. Looks like we've got ammo stowage there. So that's definitely the loader. That's the gunner. I'm obviously sitting in the commander's position. And wow. I mean, I suppose if your life depended on it, you could crawl all the way down there to the driver's compartment, perhaps. Tell you what, let's climb over to the loader's position. Just get our legs around the breech. Get my head down. Oh, so the commander's periscope's here. And see what we can see. No, you can't get through there. Can't get through there at all. I suppose that's where the coax machine gun would go. Or I haven't got a clue. I don't know enough about tanks to be able to answer that question. What does this do? Oh, right. Yeah, licensing. Rubber seal there for NBC protection. Obviously it's corroded. This is an old machine. All sorts of just buttons and stuff, and I have no idea what any of it does. But I can finally say I've been inside a Centurion. Oh yeah. Look at the size of the breech of that gun. The old 105mm. Let's see what the view's like from the other hatch. Hey! Eddie! I'm in a tank! I'm in a tank, Eddie! And it's a Centurion! Yay! It's a little known fact that the Centurion was actually a Soviet design. The evidence is right here. it has a log. Right, I wonder if you can guess which tank I'm standing on the engine compartment of right now. Right at the back, as you can see. It's the air intakes for the engine. Here's the back of the turret. Looks pretty heavily armoured. I'll give you a clue, it's British. The commander's hatch. I presume the loader's hatch. The mighty 120mm gun. It's the Chieftain. Look at the thickness of this turret armour. Just look at the size of the armour plating on the front of this monster. And then of course we get down to the upper glacis, driver's hatch. The thickness of that upper glacis armour. And oh look, suddenly a wild old Ed Francis appears.
Here I am.
Let's just get down off this beast without breaking anything and have a look at the mighty Chieftain.
Yes.
That thing is an absolute monster. So what do you reckon if this was in World of Tanks? It's got to be a tier 10 heavy.
Yeah, World of Tanks, tier 10 British heavy tank. You know, fantastic front armour. From a straight on horizontal shot, equivalent of 320mm of armour there. Nearly 340 on a turret from a straight on shot there. You've got a 120mm gun, the L11A2, fantastic gun, capable of penetrating any Cold War vehicle quite easily. Side armour is very thin, 40mm. You've got this thin little space layer here, track guard, then you've got 40mm. The biggest problem you're going to have with this tank is the back. In here you've got a Leyland L60 engine, and this is the most unreliable engine, like all Leyland engines that have ever been built.
Yeah, it's luckily they don't model engine reliability in World of Tanks, isn't it? Exactly. Otherwise this thing would only start a battle 34% of the time.
You'd only get 1 in 5 games. When this vehicle first came out, she was more unreliable than the World War I tanks, the Mark I, and she had a very high breakdown rate. 48 kilometres an hour is the stated speed it should be able to do. It's only a 750 horsepower engine. In realistic, on a steep incline or even a moderate incline, 12 kilometres an hour. This thing is not fast. And it also produces a lot of white smoke. In fact, Russians were able to see this coming from miles away due to the smoke when it started up. It is a multi-fuel engine. That means it will run on petrol, it will run on diesel, it will run on gas, it will run on vodka, it will run on aftershave, it will run on anything. And that was part of the problem with it. They wanted an engine that would run in a nuclear war.
Yeah, so it's a sort of jack of all trades, master of absolutely nothing.
No. So yeah, we got that side of things.
It's a really imposing looking machine though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to be on the wrong end of that.
I mean, in the Cold War, you'd have been dealing with a horde of Soviet tanks coming towards you. You'd have had your T-6s, your T-55s, your T-62s. NATO obviously designed to work, in theory, together. These would have sat and taken the brunt of it in defensive positions in Germany, along with the Americans. Dug in positions, hold down, try and withstand the oncoming Russians. Faster light tanks like the Germans, which utilise speed.
With the Leopards, getting around the flank.
Leopards, to destroy them. British tankers would have been trained to pick off command tanks if possible. Obviously a Russian can't take anything without a good command given from a superior, whereas British tankers are trained to think for themselves a little bit. Absolutely fantastic gun. One thing that can be said for all British tanks is they do have good guns.
This is true. So there it is, the mighty Chieftain.
About ammo types.
Here you go, the chap's checking.
Oh, here we go.
Yep, here we go.
Staff is going to tell us about the ammo types used on the Chieftain.
Mainly on Chieftain and Charlie 1 because they're the same weapon system completely.
Yep.
It's just a challenge as a Chieftain in a modern day cloak.
Yep.
You had 2 main ammo types, HESH, high explosive squash head, and you had APDS, armour piercing
discarding sabot.
Oh yeah. And that's what set it amongst, because so much research and development was done into the ammunition type, its propellant, and the conditions that it operates in, you know, like a sleeve barrel and all that business. That's what made it a formidable weapon, as well as being a fairly decent calibre mounted to a very heavy, well-armoured platform that didn't really go anywhere because it broke down and left the gate. Went out for it. Yeah,
And-
it's not just the gun per se, it's
It's the
also
whole
the
package,
ammunition,
yeah.
It's a weapons system.
And there's a demonstrator next door where you can see the effects of HESH and APDS and APFDS and all kinds of different
Yeah.
armour.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at that in a bit.
Yeah, and because the fin round, Chieftain fired fin, same as Challenger 1, and then fin was developed further for Challenger 2. And now with Charm, it's being developed further, slightly denser. We tried a smoothbore barrel, but we still got a penchant for firing HESH. So you'll keep.
It
that's
does
why we
the
kept
job.
a rifle barrel. Plus, it would cost millions.
Yeah, to
to
just refit everything.
To refit something that's going up, it's going really as a concept. You're not
Yeah.
getting. It's going to be nothing new for a main battle tank.
And did the Chieftain have a bag charge? Was it a cartridge? Main gun.
It started off bag, and then it went to the burnable cartridge. Yeah.
Because originally she had a built-in sort of safe stowage, didn't you? Like a glycerine coating around the bag charges in the event of a
Yeah,
penetration.
that's a charge bin there, which is the same. See that thing with the FB number on it? That's Chieftain Challenger share the same design of charge bin, so you can see what it is. It's basically a really thick anti-spall liner material.
So in the event of penetration, detonating ammunition was very hard. She wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean it wouldn't contain the explosion. If that got compromised, then it will still go up. But the idea is the spall, the flashing that occurs inside the turret, and turret fire. You've got a degree of time more than anything to get out or attempt to fight the fire type attitude. But that's an example of ammo stowage.
So there's the mighty Chieftain, which was of course succeeded by the even mightier Challenger 1. Funny old story about this thing, it was actually designed for Iran. And then of course the Shah got overthrown and the Ayatollah didn't want to buy any. So of course they were sat here with a whole bunch of these things that nobody wanted, and the British Army said, yeah, all right, we'll take them. And it was a great tank. But we're not going to spend too much time looking at the Challenger 1, because we're going to go climbing around inside a Challenger 2. What we have here is the gun that you get on the Matilda. With this thing here is the Little John adapter. And this is what you get on the Matilda, the Tier 4 Matilda, currently in World of Tanks. And basically all this does is it squeezes the bore of the barrel, just this bit on the end, this adapter, just to generate a bit more pressure from the propellant gases behind the shell. So it just exits the barrel with that with a little bit more velocity. Over here, this is, well, it's a 30mm squeeze bore, German 1942. Basically this is the Konish, and the difference between that and the British gun with the Little John adapter on the end of the muzzle is that this entire barrel tapers to pretty much produce exactly the same effect. What's weird is that both of these cannons are on display. Do you know what it is yet? Next to a Leopard 1. But not just any old Leopard 1. Get a load of this. Yes, guns everywhere. 105mm pack howitzer used by the airborne. Now, here is our Leopard 1. Look at that. Is that not just amazing? There's the driver. There's the gunner. There's the commander. And over here is the gun and the loader. They quite literally cut a Leopard 1 in half. And it's on display here at the Defence Capability Centre at Shrivenham. That is just amazing. Look at that. Let's take a closer look. I mean, you don't get much of a better view of the inside of a Leopard than this. So there's the gun. German licensed version of the same gun that the British use. Various different ammunition types. Does look like HESH. Next to armour piercing. Obviously inert rounds. Ready use ammunition racks there. You've got more ammo at the back of the turret here. Where's the rest of the ammo stowage? There's more rounds stowed down here. Then you've got 7.62mm ammo racks there for the coaxial machine gun. We were talking about this commander's hatch design here. The famous Otto Carius himself actually had input into the design of this tank, and the Leopard, the commander's hatch actually hinges and slides to the side. And the reason for that was because, well, if you look at something like the T-34, for example, where the hatches pop up, if you're watching the skyline for a whole down tank, you can see the movement of those hatches popping up, and that's the reason Otto Carius wanted the Leopard's commander's hatch to slide to the side rather than to pop up and give that movement and silhouette away, just to give a tank's position away. So, yeah, a little bit of history there for you. And there it is, cut away Leopard 1. That's incredible. They also have some seriously big guns in this place. Look at that. 155mm field howitzer, the FH-70. I know I sound like an expert, but I'd never heard of this thing until I arrived here. Luckily they're all labelled, so you can actually see what they are. This thing is massive. That's a big old mortar. Is that an 81mm mortar? It's huge. It might even be bigger than 81mm. In fact, I think there's an 81mm around here. Let's just compare the difference. See, that thing isn't actually signed up. Yeah, that's substantially bigger than 81mm. That is an 81mm mortar. Guys, what calibre do you reckon this mortar is around here?
The big comic one?
Yeah. That's a 120mm mortar. That's a mortar that's practically the same calibre as the gun on the IS-2. I don't really think that's man-portable. It's absolutely huge. I wouldn't want to be the one out to carry the base plate of that thing. But there's some massive guns in this place. I mean, there's that 155mm field howitzer. Then over here, at first I thought this was, I'm sure I've seen the US Marines firing artillery almost exactly the same as this, but I'm probably completely wrong. This was manufactured by VSAIL at Barrow-in-Furness, so this is British. Is there a data card for this thing? I haven't, oh, here we go. What is this? Oh, M77, M777 even, 3.7, 155mm gun. Ultra lightweight, titanium aluminium steel composition. 2.5 tons. Parachute capable. See it being used there as an airlift by an Osprey. Yeah. Massive, just the fact that you could airlift this thing and drop it into a 5.8 out in the middle of nowhere. Battery of these things, instant fire support anywhere you want it. Another one over here. 155mm, a whole bunch of numbers. Again, this is towed, can be airlifted, operated in direct fire or indirect fire mode. Just some serious weaponry. I've always had a soft spot for this thing. Speaking of airlifted artillery, this is the 105mm pack howitzer. Yes, there it is. There's the data card. I'm pretty sure I've got some footage of these things being fired at the War and Peace show. So, yeah, let's have a quick, I'm just going to have a quick look through my video archive and see if I can find it, and we'll intercut it into this video, and we'll edit that in so you can see what these things are like when they're being fired. I certainly hope I've got that footage, otherwise I'm going to look pretty damn stupid. So, yeah, this is what they call the gun hall here at the Defence Capability Centre. This is just, you know, 2 halves of a Leopard and a whole bunch of big-ass guns. Next door, look at this, look at this, 5.5-inch gun. Oh. And it turns out I do actually have some footage of this 105mm pack howitzer being fired. This was taken from the War and Peace show earlier on this summer. Ready for this? Here we go.
Good stuff. Anyway, let's get back to Shrivenham.
British 25-pounder field gun. This thing was legendary. I actually had an Airfix model kit of one of these when I was a kid. We've got the ammunition carrier over here as well. We obviously tow this behind the field gun, behind the tractor that towed the field gun. And this is where you get the 25-pounder artillery shells. Obviously it was in 2 cases. You've got the bag charge, and then the actual warheads kept separately. 2-stage ammunition. There it is. It's the ammunition carrier for the 25-pounder gun. Classic piece of design. Very, very effective. You might recognise that muzzle brake. This is the gun that they use on the Electo. 25-pounder gun. You recognise the muzzle brake from in the game.
How'd you like to see a member of staff demonstrate some very, very early breech loading mechanisms? Of course you would. First, the Eastman breech.
Double throw of the handles and down. Oh, look at that.
That's incredible.
Which is very nice. Easy peasy. The workmanship and it just makes it look so easy. Oh, that's the guns. And the second one we've got is our triple motion, which the record for opening this is 8 seconds, but that did result in a squash heading ring. And that's the breech of the 9.2 inch gun. Easy peasy. Wow. Look at the amount of brass on that. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, the weight of it is 2,382 kilograms.
Wow.
And it's mostly brass. So scrap value alone is going to be an absolute fortune. Well, thanks very much for demonstrating. No problem. It's a great kit. What we have here is an example of 3 Hesh strikes on some, this is homogeneous armour plate. How thick would you say this is?
This armour plate here,
100 millimetres?
it's probably a bit thicker, it's about 120.
About 120 millimetre thick of homogeneous rolled steel armour plate.
Yep.
And there are 3 strikes. We can see where a Hesh round has struck here, where one has struck here,
And one here.
and one right there. Now, 120 millimetres of armour plate. Not all of these shots were fired at the same angle. This one hit at an incline. So let's just have a look at what happened on the other side of this armour plating.
There we go. These are the exit wounds from Hesh.
Yeah, and these are the exit wounds.
So it's literally liquidated and shredded.
Yeah.
Flaking.
That is what Hesh does, and that is just carnage. 120 millimetres of solid steel armour, and it just, you can see that there was next to nothing on this side, but it's the spalling damage. Basically it generates a shockwave that goes through the armour and then blows
Chunks of metal
chunks of metal like that at speeds of like a mile a second around the inside of the interior.
This will be travelling about 4 or 5 times faster than a bullet, and will ricochet backwards and forwards down the tank. Not just small bits, bullet-sized pieces, will ricochet all over the tank. The only thing that will stop it is
a
crew,
spool liner.
spool liner,
Yeah.
or modules. If it hits the radio, it's destroyed. If it hits ammunition, it destroys it. It kills everything inside the vehicle.
Yeah.
Now, armour thickness isn't relevant. This could be 500 millimetres thick, and this will still happen.
Yeah.
The only thing that will stop the HESH round is effective space layers.
Yep, space layers will reduce the effectiveness.
Yep. Or a spool liner, which will stop the smaller spool, but it won't stop pieces like this.
Yeah. There's an example of a spool liner over here. There you go. This is what a spool liner actually looks like. And it just seems to be fibre weave. I was expecting something more rubbery, I have to admit, but if you can have a look and see, hopefully the camera's picking up the fine detail. You can see what that's just compressed layers of what looks like fiberglass or some kind of ceramic. But that's an actual spool liner. You can see various...
Is our HESH round?
Yeah, oh, right there is an actual HESH round.
There's our HESH round for you boys. And that is high explosive squash head. And what you've got here, in the top you've got tar. When that hits the armour, this tar basically takes some of the shock. And then you've got your plastic explosive, which is an RDX mixture in here. And that squishes like a giant pancake on the front of the armour in a split second. Then you've got a small charge in the back which detonates it, causes a massive shock wave that travels through the metal, and it will keep going all the way through the metal until it comes to an exit point in which it will blast out with the same velocity.
Show them the jets.
Here we go. These are the little jets at the back with the tracer jets. And that's so you can follow its path.
Yeah, those actually literally just fire flares out of the back of the shell, so you can see it in flight and follow the trajectory.
And that is a HESH round, gentlemen.
Yeah. Down here we've got various different examples of armour. So we've got rolled homogeneous armour. This was like basically Second World War armour technology. Titanium armour here. Aluminium alloy. I don't know what the hell that is. It doesn't seem to be marked. Ceramic armour. What uses ceramic armour?
Ceramics, well, obviously like pottery and things.
Yeah.
Ceramic armour is what you get in laminate tanks. So you'd usually get different layers of metal and
So
ceramics.
like in the Warrior, for example.
Yeah, you get laminate armour, so you'd have metal, ceramic, metal going through. Ceramic is obviously quite effective against heat,
Yes.
things like that, because it doesn't crumble. And again, with different layers, you've got different densities, so shockwaves such as HESH are less effective against laminate armours.
Speaking of different kinds of weapon systems, over here, armour-piercing, fin-stabilised, discarding sabot. This is basically your premium ammo in World of Tanks, your APCR ammo. This is fired from the Challenger 2. And there's the penetrator dart. This is actually depleted uranium, believe it or not. Up here, another example of this is what we call armour-piercing, discarding sabot. APSD, APDS.
Well, these are actually, these are slightly fin stabilised, as you can see.
And the sabot is actually it's actually a French word for shoe, and that's literally what this is. This is just a shoe that holds the penetrator, so that you can get effectively a 120mm propellant charge behind a 20mm penetrator. So you've got the velocity and power of that 120mm round, and as it leaves the barrel, these bits just fall off, leaving the dart to strike the target.
This dart here, so it's a depleted uranium, it's a fairly heavy dart. It's a lot heavier than it looks. When it's travelling, we'll be travelling at roughly 1 mile per second, which gives you an idea of the speed. When it impacts on something like that T-72 you can see over there, this will go through the front of the T-72 and out the back of it, and will still look very similar to that.
Yeah. Well, there's an example over here. Here we go, there's some penetration examples of APDS going through. I think that this one was an APDS penetrator.
Yep, that one's gone straight through.
Yep.
Calculating there, we're talking 300
300mm of armour, yeah.
Straight through, no problems.
Over here, this one's a HESH that hasn't struck straight on.
No. This is a HESH that's actually had a spool liner in front of it, believe it or not.
Ah,
it's called a
right.
failed HESH.
Okay.
So you can still see, even with a spool liner, it's bulged.
Yeah.
But the spool liner was on that side, so it saved it.
Yeah. One of these is heat, isn't it?
These are depleted rounds, so these again straight through, as you can see through and through here. The heat round is the most impressive one. This is the result of a heat round. Now each of these blocks is 100mm. So there's a metre worth of armour here, that's 1000mm. The hole starts there, and it's still going there. It stops there roughly. So
basically gets through
900mm.
900mm of steel armour.
Yeah.
High explosive anti-tank round, just melted its way right through.
And one of the things, that's something we need to cover, one people say is that heat melts. It doesn't.
Oh, right.
It's not using the temperature control. In fact, it causes so much pressure, the pressure affects it at an atomic level. It literally causes the metal to part.
Oh, wow.
It's a pressure system, not the temperature.
There you go, learn something new every day. Jingles, you're full of shit.
There we go. But it's just one of the things people say, oh, it melts and it doesn't melt. That's right.
Right.
So yeah, and here's, in fact, here's a heat shell showing you how it works. So there we go, high explosive anti-tank from a T-72. So the round impacts, it compresses the copper jacket, literally turns into a hot stream, which pushes through. And the sheer pressure of it is greater than the density of the metal and pops out.
Alright.
That's it for this episode, folks. Join us for the third and final part where, amongst other things, we'll be looking around the Challenger 2 and the biggest armoury in Europe. Catch you then.